What's up? This is another Bible study through Nahum, the fall of Nineveh. If you got this far, you know I've been talking about how I had notes I created 2 years ago in one of these booklets, and right when I got done with the third Bible study, what you know, I found the notes. Um, I want to go through the notes because they're a whole lot better than what I just did. And the reason for that is because when I actually sit down and create these Bible studies, it takes me like a week to a month to create an in-depth Bible study, but I want to go through what I wrote down 2 years ago. And we're going to talk about Nahum chapter 2, verse 2, that Second Kings 18 um, thing that I've been talking about the last two videos, because I know what that means now. Because I wrote it down in my notes 2 years ago, but I'm like looking at it like, what? Why did I write that? So in the notes, I have verse 2, chapter 1 through verse 5. It says, "The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord is an avenging and wrathful, avenging. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord is an avenging and wrathful God, and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries, and he keeps his wrath from his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, great in power. The Lord will by no means clear the guilty. His ways is a whirlwind, storm, and a cloud of dust in his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all the rivers. Bashan and Carmel wither and bloom, and the bloom of Lebanon withers. The mountains quake before him. The hills melt, the earth weaves before him. The world and all who dwell in it. So my notes I have, verse 2, God is just. Okay, God is just. He is a justful God. And then verse 3, I put down, God is slow to anger. And I believe that I talked about this in the Nahum 1 Bible study, that God is slow to anger, that he's just, slow to anger, right? And that he is powerful. God is powerful. And I cover those three things in the Bible study. But I'm just repeating what I wrote down in my notes. He's not just powerful, but he alone is the ruler of everything. And I did cover that. I definitely remember covering that. Verse 6 through 10. Go ahead and read verses 6 through 10. And I'm going to say I wrote down that no one can stand before God on their own strength, but only on the strength of God. No one can stand before God on their own strength, but only on the strength of God. Verse 7, the Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. So God is a stronghold for the believer. He is a refuge. He knows those who take refuge in him. So God is a refuge for the believer. And God is their friend. God is our friend. He is our stronghold. He is our refuge. He is our friend. But for the non-believer, for those who have rejected Yahweh, God is an overflowing flood of destruction. Verse 8, but with an overflowing flood, he will make a complete end of the adversaries, and he will pursue his enemies into darkness. For the non-believer, God is a resistance in the midst of trouble, a resistance in the midst of trouble. Verse 8. Yeah, a resistance in the midst of trouble. He is an overflowing flood of destruction, a resistance in the midst of trouble. And verse 10, they are entangled, confused, and consumed. Verse 10 says, for they are like entangled thorns, like drunkards that are as drunk, like drunkards as they drink, and are consumed like stubble fully dried up. So non-believers, when they reject God, God is an overflowing flood of destruction. He is a resistance in the midst of trouble. So instead of God being a refuge in the midst of trouble, he becomes a resistance in the midst of trouble. He's the opposite. It's the opposite effect. And the people who reject God, they become entangled, confused, and consumed. Entangled, confused. Imagine a soldier trying to enter a military base, and there's all these barbed wires, and they try to jump over the fence, but they become entangled by the razor wires. That's what evil people who have rejected God become. Likewise, but for the believer, God is a stronghold, a refuge, and a friend. And for those who don't believe God is a resistance, an overflowing flood, they become entangled, confused, and consumed. And then let me see. I think I covered a bunch of this, but verse chapter 2, well, right here is that chapter 2. Maybe my notes are wrong. Let me see what I. Oh no, I did cover that. And then I put down. Okay, so I did. I covered that. Wow. So I do want to talk about what's going on in 2 Kings 18. But first, we're going to read 13 and 14. It says, and now I will break his yoke from you and will burst your bonds apart. The Lord has given commandment about you. No more shall your name be purchurated. I can't say it. From the house of your gods I will cut off the grave images and the metal images. I will make your graves for you veil. And then where is it? He talks about Israel. Maybe I verse 2, chapter 2, it says, the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob as the majesty of Israel. For plunderers have plundered them and ruined their branches. If you go to 2 Kings 18, Nineveh was an not Assyrian. Nineveh was a Syrian nation or city, an Assyrian city. And I think I wrote down somewhere that they had 5 main cities or 5 total cities. No, I didn't write it down, but they had 5 cities, main cities, and Nineveh was one of them. But in 2 Kings 18, what you're going to find is that when things were watching this video and this message, this website right here, patreon.com/growyourfaith. If you wish to support the ministry financially, then you can do that. The money will go towards planting a local church that will be targeting young people in a in Northwest Wisconsin. So Northwest Wisconsin, most of the churches, it's just people over the age of 55, and young people are everywhere. But I'm just one person. I have one income. I don't have unlimited resources, but I want to. I want to reach young people for Christ. And I don't just want to reach young people for Christ. I believe God is calling me to do this. And so, like I said, if you want to join me in making that mission possible, $5 a month, and I'm working on creating a new Bible version. It's going to be called Grow Your Faith Bible. And if you become a Patreon, you'll get, access to that Bible version before everyone else as I complete the Bible version. But with that being said, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video message, and God bless you. Have a great day. Is that when first, a little history. Solomon was king, his son became king after him. His son did not take the advice of the elders at that time, and the kingdom got divided. Israel became divided between the north and the south. Between, if I remember right, the north was Judah and the south was Israel. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but it's not. It doesn't really matter that much right now. But you had the north and the south, Judah and Israel. Well, what happens in 2 Kings 18 is that when Judah didn't fall to Assyria, but Israel did. The difference between Judah and Israel in that situation is that Judah honored God. Israel did not honor God. And so we get back to what God says in verse 2, chapter 2, for the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob as the majesty of Israel. He's pointing back to whenever Israel got divided up and conquered, and they got conquered by Assyria and by Babylon. And so that's what he's doing. God's saying, I'm going to restore my people. But there is a lesson to be made, a lesson to be learned from this is that when we choose to honor God as a nation, God will protect us from an enemy nation from overtaking us. And that is very difficult for a American to comprehend. Like we think there's no way we can ever be taken over by another nation because we're Americans. But even Nineveh was great at one point. Rome was great. All these nations were great. And we're just another nation that could be taken over if we choose to reject God. God is essentially saying Look at my faithfulness with Judah, Nineveh. Look how I was faithful to Judah because they chose to honor me. We need to be a people that honors God. That's the whole story of Nineveh. Is Nineveh was a nation that honored God, but they chose to turn their back on God and they got destroyed. We need to be a nation that honors God in the United States of America. And that's not just for the United States. I know people from all over the world and different countries are listening to the same message. Whatever country you're in, you need to make sure that your nation is honoring God. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the United States. In Daniel 7:4, Daniel sees a beast come out, and it's a lion with eagle wings, and it says the eagle wings get ripped off the lion's back, made to stand up like a man, to think and speak like a man. This is the picture of Bible prophecy of the United States of America declaring their independence from Great Britain. The lion is Great Britain, the United States is the eagle. In Revelation chapter 12, verse 14, it says that the woman was given a pair of eagle wings for time and a half. That's 3.5 years, which is the Great Tribulation. The woman is Israel, and the eagle wings is the United States of America. So the ultimate lot for this nation is that one day the United States of America will stand with Israel during the Great Tribulation and defend Israel until the second coming of Jesus Christ. So I'm not really worried about this nation being destroyed. Like some preachers out there say that, oh, this nation is Babylon and we're going to get destroyed. No, it's not. Babylon, the daughter of Babylon in Bible prophecy, that's talking about the beast kingdom. The beast kingdom is made up of the other beast in Daniel 7. You got the lion, the bear, the the leopard with 4 heads, the turkey, I believe it's a turkey, or there's a bird in there. I forgot what bird it was. I think it was the turkey. But and then the beast with 10 horns, and 3 horns get plucked out, 1 little horn rises up, and the little horn is the Antichrist. That's the beast kingdom. A lot of Bible prophecy scholars, they say, oh, well, the beast kingdom is going to be over the entire world and all nations. And it's true that it's going to insist of all nations, but it's not true that it's going to be of every inch of the earth. See, when the Tower of Babel came down, God divided up the people into 70 nations. So anytime you see the word nation or nations in the Bible, is referring to the 70 nations that got divided up at the Tower of Babel. The church is consisted of all 70 nations, but also the beast kingdom is also consisted of all 70 nations. So these different nations that will come together into an alliance, they will consist of members from all 70 nations, but also the church will also consist of all 70 nations. And that's for a talk for another time. We can talk about that later. We can talk about how the United States of America is part of the Abrahamic covenant because God told Abraham, I'm going to make you into a nation. and into an assembly of nations. He didn't say to many nations, he said into an assembly of nations. An assembly is an entity of nations, which is the United States of America, which is an assembly of nations. It's the only nation on earth in all of history to ever be an assembly of nations. The United States of America came from, a group of Christians escaping persecution. Christians came from Jesus. Jesus came from Abraham. It's a direct, and God told Abraham, your descendants are going to have a land flowing with milk and honey. God told this to Abraham about the blessed son and about the other son that wasn't blessed. Ishmael and Isaac both became a great nation. They both received land flowing with milk and honey, but one's blessed, the other's not blessed. And the blessed son is the Jewish people. Jesus comes through the Jewish people, and then the church is born, and both the Jews and the church both are part of the Abrahamic covenant. They both receive land. The Jewish people received the land of Israel, and the church received the land of what we call the United States of America. It's part of the Abrahamic covenant. So I don't think the United States is going to fall like Nineveh. But I do think that we have an example to live by to the story of Nineveh of how this nation needs to turn back to God. So we don't have weak borders. So we don't have a weak military. So we don't have weak leaders leading this nation. Because even if we don't get destroyed as a nation, God does not promise us that we're just going to have a prosperous existence. We have to, as a nation, turn back to God so that our brothers and our sisters will be saved on the day of salvation.